This is the Horror Scouts podcast. In this episode, we're reviewing Infinity Pool. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm joined as always by Brian.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hey.
And we are your hosts and troop leaders here at Horror Scouts. Just some quick housekeeping at the top. Reminder that we've got video and audio versions of the podcast. So you can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/@horrorscouts or on any of your favorite podcast service if you prefer to do the audio version. Also, warning, all of our reviews contain full spoilers. So if you don't want anything ruined about Infinity Pool, go check it out and then come on back to the conversation. And that's it on my list of intro stuff. I'm almost there. I've almost got it down.
Yeah. A few more times it'll be like just word for word verbatim the same every time.
Yeah.
Faster and easier.
Yep. So how's it going, fellas?
Good.
It's going.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
It's
slightly
April.
more awake this time than last time, so
Okay.
that's good. That's good.
That can be helpful.
It's always nice to have you here on the podcast and not just there sleeping or something.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any new stuff where peek behind the curtain. Some recent episodes are going to be released out of order of when we recorded them. So any news is going to be a little wonky, but yeah, I can't think of anything big. It's just that I've probably said this in the previous episode, wink, that I'm just excited for this month in general. Like I've been waiting for April because of Renfield and Evil Dead Rise, and it's just some good stuff.
Do we think Renfield is going to be good? I can't tell.
I think it's going to be fun. I mean, they've got 2 trailers now.
Yeah.
I've watched both of them.
I mean, you know me, I don't seek out trailers, but one came up just like in a scroll on Instagram. So I watched it and I was like, oh, this feels campier than I thought it was going to be, which I guess is the intent. So I think I just need to have a mind shift going into it.
It's definitely.
Yeah, that was my first like exposure to it. And I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's definitely for like a broad audience.
Yeah.
Just kind of goofy, whatever. But, hey, Nick Cage has a different character that he can be weird with.
Why not?
And then Nicholas Hoult, like, he's great. And I'm finally watching the second season of The Great, which he is great in. So, yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Reserve judgments. I'm sure we're all going to see it. We might even review it. But, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. As far as this month's movies, Evil Dead Rise is the big one that we will definitely be checking out. So, yeah. So, all right. We don't really have anything else going on. Why don't we just dive right in to
then.
Infinity Pool? Sorry.
Don't be.
Okay,
What
so
are you shaking your head for? You love it.
It's a good pun. It's a very good pun.
So, Infinity Pool, written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg. And I love the cat noises. It's
I'm
great.
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's cute. She's excited. There she is. Our cast, our main core cast, we've got Alexander Skarsgård, who plays James, Mia Goth, who we've seen a lot of this year, and that's not a complaint, is Gabby. We got Cleopatra Coleman as M, and Jaleel Lespert. It can't be Spurt. It's got to be Lespert or something.
It's got to be, right?
Plays
I
Alban.
think so.
And we got some other people, but they're our core group. And the synopsis is guided by a seductive and mysterious woman, a couple on vacation venture outside the resort grounds and find themselves in a culture filled with violence, hedonism, and untold horror. A tragic accident soon leaves them facing a zero-tolerance policy for crime. Either you'll be executed, or if you're rich enough to afford it, you can watch yourself die instead. Yay, nay, or just okay?
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. I'd recommend people watch this. I'll
Okay.
say yay.
So you don't have to.
I
Just 'cause
know.
we did.
I know, but I was like, I enjoyed it, and I'm with you two saying yay, and now getting into the conversation. I'm sure by the end I'll be like, yeah, I'll probably just say yay.
So
Yeah,
it's funny.
I mean-
I didn't even read that description going into this movie. I saw the trailer and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, this is going to be a drug trip. It's not. Well, I mean, that gets involved, but it's not
Right.
primarily like a drug trip movie.
Yeah.
And that, what you just read seemed like kind of a spoiler. I mean, it's not because it comes in pretty early as a major plot point, but not knowing that going in about, they're die or be paid for a duplicate type thing is like, oh, that was a nice big reveal.
Yeah, if we didn't do spoilers, I would have read the IMDb description. But I always check the IMDb one, and sometimes it's just so short and vague that I just checked like the Google one. So what I read was the Google one, and I was like, well, we do spoilers, so it's safe enough.
Right.
Yeah, clearly I had no idea that's what was going to happen going into this movie because, you told me it was a Cronenberg movie and I was like, game on, let's watch it. So yeah, I did no research, watched no trailers, went in 100% blind. So when they're like, oh, we'll just make you a body double and you can watch it die, I was like, what the fuck is this movie? That is real out of left field. But apparently they were just telling people that off the, from the jump. So interesting. But yeah, that definitely pulled the rug out from under me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Brandon's previous movie, Possessor. Right?
Yeah.
Possessor. Yeah.
Did we review that? Or
Yes.
Okay. God, I don't really remember it, unfortunately. But apparently his thing is kind of his theme that he runs with is like the elite and them getting away with whatever they want, or the lack of restrictions if you're part of the elite. So yeah, that's ultimately what this movie boils down to. Because I mean, I don't want to get to the end right away, obviously, but it's kind of just the movie is more of an experience, and you just kind of get the theme from it, and there's no actual like wrap up. I mean, it's a Cronenberg movie, so you kind of expect a crazy experience first and foremost.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that like when it all ends, it's just like, okay, so that happened.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like this one had a little more to it. I mean, so I was reading some reviews and someone brought up the point of, I'm just going to, him being the son of David Cronenberg. It's like, notes, quote, Brandon Cronenberg seems to recognize the degree of his privilege and this is the exploration of talent and self-doubt via James Foster that makes this movie a treat to watch. A man who doesn't fit in, whose only true skill is leeching off the elite, and then is thrust into a hallucinogenic world of sex, drugs, and violence where he attempts to fit in. So it's looking at his perspective, not just getting away with it, but he's at least questioning it. But my takeaway was the big question of like, he was kind of thrust into it, but it's like the imagery of literally shedding your past self, killing your past, and to change and become what you need to be or what you want to be. Like, how far will you go? Can you go? And he went there, James went to this resort to try to find inspiration for his next book. And so this is him kind of getting forced into a situation to hopefully find that inspiration and change, stop leeching off of his wife's family's money and such. So where that, it doesn't fall apart, but where that next question is like, he was thrust into that by this group of people who found this loophole to get away with murder, literally. But why? Like, that's the question I was left with this movie, is why him? So there's toward the end of the movie, you find out that they were after him all along, or at least Gabby was. Like, she knew who he was. She pinned him early on, maybe even before he even got there. It's almost sounded like, or had his eye on him for a few weeks, whatever it was, did her research and wanted to get him into this group and do this and get into trouble and be in there, seemingly to push him over that edge. And when they did it, they're like, okay, we're done now. We can go home. But they never explained why him. And it didn't necessarily sound like any of them started out like him. And maybe they did, and they were just trying to find who used to be like-minded people early on in their experience. But
yeah, interesting. Okay, so I've got two thoughts there. For the first part of what you were saying about him growing and the whole, looking for inspiration, I would have felt so much better than if that very last shot of him sitting in the lounge chair in the freaking thunderstorm.
right, yeah,
If he took out like a notebook and started to write,
right.
That would have hit it home for me, because we've gone through so much in the movie that I've kind of forgotten that he's supposed to be
Why
there to
he's
get
there.
inspiration. Yeah.
Right.
And then for the second part, yeah, I mean, it almost seems like the stranger situation. Like with this group of people, it's just like, because you were here. There's no reason why we picked you.
Right.
It's funny. A couple of movies that seem to inspire this very early on anyway. I wrote The Strangers, Hostel, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Very obvious points. But because I said The Strangers too, but it didn't seem like just because he was there. Or maybe because he was there, but they picked him. They could have picked anyone in the resort. Or no one at all. Like, there seemed to be a reason to do that. And I didn't quite put together why. But it seemed like their mission. It wasn't just, they want new blood. Like,
right.
It's just, I kind of jumped ahead to the overall meaning of the movie we didn't discuss yet.
Fine.
But to the point of the end, though, where he's just sitting in the rain, I took that as he was ready to go home, right? He's in the airport. He's talked to M, and they're going to make things better or whatever. And then he started hearing the noise of the world. And just kind of like, I think it was like he can't go back. Yeah. So whether he grew or not, we don't know. But he's changed to a point where he can't just be in the real world right now.
Yeah, I think they broke him. I mean,
yeah, like this could easily have a short sequel to like, what happens to James now? Does he just stay there and live in the infinity pool, so to speak, or?
Yeah, all right. I mean, I think just as easily could have just been him just walking into the freaking storming ocean and just be like, I can't anymore.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's funny. I for not knowing what this movie was going to be or where it was going. It originally seemed like it was going to be bad influences of Gabby and Albon taking them outside, getting in trouble. Going off the beaten path into a, poverty-stricken country and getting in over their heads and having to, I don't know, survive somehow. It seems like you could go very much one way of the locals versus the tourists. And then very quickly it turns into a Cronenberg movie. And you can now clone perfect duplicates of you and watch them get killed to, spare you having to have that done.
Yeah, should we explain that law really quick?
Fucking brutal, yeah. So, in that country, which is a made-up country, very smart on their part, little island community that is apparently poverty-stricken, gets all their money from tourism, and off the beaten path, it is nowhere you want to be. And their main law there is that if you... I don't know if it was just murder. It was...
They have very strict rules for everything.
Yeah.
They're very religious.
It basically was an eye for an eye. If you kill somebody, the next of kin has to kill you. And they're like, we have a spot for it on the second floor of the police station. Like, it is just a very matter-of-fact thing. Sign this paper. You're going to go get killed now. But if you have the means, you can have a double of yourself, right down to your memories and everything else, an exact duplicate clone made to stand in for you. But you have to watch them get killed. So that is the law and the core of the movie here. Then where it went from there, I felt like I would have liked it to have gone a different direction. Like right after that, when you then discover, I guess, that Gabby and Alban have both found this same loophole, and that this is what they do on vacation now, is come back and kill people. You have a scene where they invite him to their hotel room with a whole bunch of other people. And one of the dudes, like, the first thing he says is, kind of messes with your brain, doesn't it? How do you know that you're the original? And like, I was expecting a psychological trip from there of a dude not sure if he's a duplicate or if he's the real one, and going down kind of that version of self-exploration, not just like falling victim to debauchery, which was intense and cool to watch. But I feel like the repeat killing and cloning of yourself kind of loses shock value the more you do it, that by the time he's getting a third urn, it's just like, yeah, okay, this is another one, like whatever. You know, it doesn't have that same impact as the first one. Second one was gnarly, because you saw everybody's fucking throat get slit. We made it so far in this movie with no throat kills, and they're like, here's 8 of them right in a row, just like right in a row. But other than that, like, it just, the shock value of it and just like the motivation is missing a little bit. So it felt like it kind of got a little weaker from there. Like, the initial setup of what I thought the movie was going to be was really good, mostly because Mia Goth is great at playing disturbing. So having her set up to do that works really well. And also, I love Alexander Skarsgård. He's incredible. So like, that was a great pairing, and really good at just doing the awkward, uncomfortable shit's, something's weird here. And then he kills a dude accidentally, you know, vehicular manslaughter. And then it pulls the rug out from under you, where it's like a completely different fucking movie, and there's body doubles. I was like, holy shit, this movie is intense, and this is amazing. It's so like crazy. And then it just kind of kept going with the crazy and didn't find like the story that you were talking about earlier, Brian. It like lacked that kind of like motivation and core to anything that it lost me in the third act. I loved the first two. The third act, I was kind of just like, all right, I guess wrap it up. And then he wraps it up in a very like Cronenberg-y way of like, well, here's your story. Yeah. They'll be back next year and do this again, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely see that perspective. And I would have liked that explored a little more. The, is this me or is this new me or old me? But at the same time, they made it, I guess, clear enough that like, yeah, this really is a clone, so it doesn't matter. But the story is loose. There's loosely story. And to me, the story was, are they going to, I'm waiting to see what happens to James. Does he just have a breakdown? Which he kind of did. Does that breakdown lead to him having the revelation he's supposed to have and becoming the reborn version of himself? Or does he just end up sitting in the rain and doesn't know what to do with his life now? And maybe just waiting till next summer and seeing what happens. So a little harder or more firm of an ending might have been slightly more satisfactory. But just like Cronenberg, or I guess I shouldn't say, his father has a little more firm stories, but I guess like Possessor, it is a lot more of a ride than just, it relies more on the visuals and everything else than it does the story.
Yeah. It's funny. I agree with you, Nick, about, it kind of, it's a little unfortunate that it just kind of drifts into this whole, okay, we're just going to see the debauchery get more and more. In a review or an article I read about it, though, there was a good line saying like kind of I think there was 2 things here. Like, basically, what was the point of the movie? So, one is what I said earlier on, like the elite can get away with anything because of money, but also it's like, this is what happens when you stay too long at the party. And like, there's not much story to that, but I think since it went this direction, I think a fun addition could have been like, okay, you can keep doing this cloning process as long as you've got money, but the clones don't work as well every time. And like that leads into body horror right there.
Right. There needed to be something. Cause like, do we see the third time?
Well, the third time is the
third time is him as a dog. Yeah. So yeah, okay, we do see it. Yeah, I just like it. Obviously, didn't leave much of an impression by that point in it. That yeah, there needed to be some other like gimmick to that if we're going to keep doing it.
And I also felt like it needed it's so just the whole cloning process in general, like there's no lore to it or mechanic to it at all.
Which I'm fine with because I like the fact that they didn't put anything. Like, because if they either would have had to go super hard, spend 5 minutes explaining exactly how this works and make you believe it, or tell you absolutely nothing, therefore they can't break the lore.
That's true.
I'm cool with there not being lore. The struggle I had with that was they made a point of like explicitly stating how poor this country was. Like, we don't have anything else here that indicates we're in a future society where technology is crazy. How? Like, with no money, no resources, how do you develop this ridiculous science process that full duplicate clones people? Like, that was a bit of a challenge because, like, it's not like this weird. If this took place in our version of Dubai, which has all the money on Earth, and I'm sure they have technology that we don't know about, I'd be like, oh, okay. But where it's like, oh no, this is a really impoverished, third world country. Don't leave the resort. It's horrible out there. And they show, villagers on the side of the road and whatnot. And it is a very poor, rundown economy. It's like, but also we have this thing that is worth literally everything to anybody who wants to live on forever. Like, that would be the richest country in the world if that was something that they could command. So like that disparity didn't really work for me. I don't need the lore of how it works, but how the poor country affords the thing that works didn't work for me.
I think the easy way to have explained that is that clearly the money. So there's more than one of these fancy resorts. I mean, because they mentioned another one like down the road, so that they have these big compounds and it's this lavish place. And then they have this machine, and the police force, at the very least, is collecting money straight out of an ATM they have in the building. So somebody's rich. A group of somebodies are rich. I mean, there was the guy who opened the second resort that was talked about because they broke into his house. So I think it's not that the country is poor because whoever's in charge, whoever's the elite, is making it that way and taking all their money. Like they could have explained that very easily or shown that a little more directly. But I mean, there's resort money and there's this money from the cloning thing. I mean, maybe you only have these 6 people knowing this loophole. And so they're not making that ton of money.
Right.
And so
like the money to fund the infrastructure to do that to begin with had to come from somewhere. That, is a little murky, but that is minor nitpicky bullshit, but like I didn't mind that there wasn't lore. It was just that disparity between those two things kind of stuck with me at first.
Yeah. Go ahead. You got something, Brian?
I was saying in the process of, okay, the next of kin can kill you, right? Eye for an eye. But and the duplicate is allowed. When they first said this before you actually got to the killing scene, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And you just go on your way. But the fact that you're actually forced to sit there and watch it doesn't make sense to me from a law standpoint, because I mean, I guess on the one hand, you're supposed to be, you've seen this now, you're learning your lesson, and eventually you're not going to have all the money to do this. But on the other hand, I thought the point would be to trick the executor. Like, oh, you're killing him. But if the executor can look up and go, nope, there's another one.
Why are they satisfied? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's what the dream sequence that James had later on, well, turned out to be a dream sequence that James had later on when he was injured in the cabin and he dreamed the kid coming around. It's like, oh shit, now your time's up. And turned out to be body horror dream sequence. But, yeah, that I think needed more. I wanted more explanation on that. The reason that was more than the fact that they had this thing to create the duplicator thing.
Yeah. It's this weird little cycle. Like, what? Like, they're arresting you. They're in a normal situation. They would want you, if you're not going to be executed and arrested for doing something terrible, they want you out of the country, right?
Right.
But no, they're like, okay, well, there's these rich elite people at these resorts, so we'll just take money from them instead. But why not take money and also kick them out?
Right.
But yeah, the fact like that, when that little kid comes in to kill him the first time, he's, the firstborn son of the guy that they hit with the car. And like you said, you can just, even if the kid doesn't know this process, right? They're just like, the cops go and get him and they say, hey, we got the guy. Do you want revenge? And he's a young kid. He's like, yeah, great. Okay. So, and he walks in to this awesome fucking room. I mean, we'll get into the sets and everything.
Yeah.
And then they're like, there he is. He's tied to the pole. Here's a knife. You are free to do whatever you want. Okay. And he goes and he stabs him a bunch of times or whatever happens the first time. Mm-hmm. And then turns around and is able to see the real one sitting watching. You'd be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
What the fuck?
Think that.
Do I get to stab him too? Like,
yeah, so they should at least put him behind like a barrier, like a two-way glass scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is going to be me probably reading into it a little too much. So you're right. You think they want them out, but clearly the police, using that term very loosely in this scenario, clearly don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. I mean, because this group of vacationers keeps coming back. It keeps going on the spree, and he puts on an extra show for them, right? Which the throat slitting scene, like he makes a point of saying, gonna make an example out of them. And the way they shot that was awesome because you make you think, oh, they got caught, they're fucked now. Mm-hmm. And you're watching James fight back. He takes a knife from the guy, and he's the first to get a nice close-up of the throat slit. And they execute the rest of them, and then they pan the camera, and they're all sitting in the crowd applauding the show that was put on.
That was great.
It was fantastic.
That was very good.
But it kind of makes the point, like, he doesn't want them to leave because he keeps getting money for literally nothing. It costs them whatever goo has to go into the machine, which maybe it's cheap, maybe it's reusable, who the hell knows. And sand, like they have knives, they lose a couple, robes. Like, it's just money. Again, if they're collecting all this money and it's definitely not going back into the economy, they don't care who they off. Because even when they attacked the wealthy people, which is what they got caught here for, it was after the home invasion of the other guy, they didn't give a shit. Like, all right, here's your show, here's your urn. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. We'll see you next time. Like,
yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what the record is for that group of people in one summer.
Right.
Like, how many times? How many times have they had to go through this process in one summer?
What does their urn collection look like?
Yeah. That was a creepy detail.
That was shocking the first time. I wrote this, like, that is fucked that they hand you your own ashes to take back. It's like, that's just wild. A mind fuck in itself.
Yeah, why anyone would want to keep it. Like,
yeah, because you think that'd be the part of the lesson there, right? Like, we're just driving this home. Here's your ashes. Get the fuck out. Yeah. But as we just discussed, that's not their game plan. So...
Yeah, I would have liked to seen an alternate version of this where, M, after doing the right thing and realizing, hey, James is crazy and decides to leave, like, I want to see this spiral further to next summer where she served him divorce papers. Because there's no way someone with her background of money doesn't have a prenup in place, because he was the broke writer, and there's a whole scene talking about how he married rich and, she has the money, like she's paying for this vacation and resort. Okay, so spiral that further. She's not bankrolling your murder hobby anymore. Then what?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I want to see this go 3 bodies further and then watch the panic ensue.
I know what you did next summer.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're going to do in the future. Future crimes, Minority Report.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, Crimes of the Future was David Cronenberg's last movie.
There we go. Ooh. Full circle.
And this apple did not fall far from that tree, man.
No, they definitely do. Brandon's definitely a little more hallucinogenic with them. And in this movie, quite literally. Like when they announced, this drug's a hallucinogenic aphrodisiac, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the most Cronenberg thing in this movie so far. They had that drug. And then where they took it was, I was disappointed that this I know things get released digitally first nowadays, but I was bummed to not have the disc yet, because I remember watching the features for Possessor, and they were fascinating as they showed all the in-camera trickery they did, right? Like none of that was After Effects. Well, post, and then I know After Effects is actually a thing after I said it. And I know watching this that the orgy scene in particular, I'm sure there was a good chunk of that was, camera tricks, in-camera tricks. It's like, but how the fuck did you pull that off?
Yeah, the cinematography and the editing in this were just wild. And it wasn't just, oh, cool, there's these 2 psychedelic scenes. Like, even outside of that, like, this thing was shot so well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was I going to say something else, or should we just dive into the more filmic side of this? Yeah, I don't know. I lost it.
Go ahead. We can always jump back and forth. We've been doing it so far.
Yeah, we're good at that.
So, yeah. So the way this was shot was just freaking beautiful. I mean, the colors are the way certain scenes are lit. It's almost like a giallo. Like, you got the outside, obviously the outside, beautiful blue tropical scenes. You got these pink sunsets. There was one scene when I think the first time they went into the prison. Well, the club was great. Like the flashing lights, and it wasn't just a strobe. And it's just like every half a second their face would change color. That was great. But like going into the prison, like they're in one room and it's yellow. It's like all yellow. And then they go into like the kill room or whatever, and it's all red. Just so good. And like I mentioned with the kill room specifically, this weird, like almost Arioster, like amphitheater, woven ceiling sort of thing. It was so freaking cool.
But it was shaped just like a military bunker, but with bleachers.
In
the back. Well, and then you had the duplication chamber that just had this blue tile with the white design like you'd find in a bathroom in that country.
Yeah.
I loved that detail.
Yeah, it looks like they're just closing you in a bathroom and filling it with goo. Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that goo is reusable, because you step in it and it's like red. But then what starts pumping in through the wall, it's like blue or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also smart. Like, as much as we'd like to know, how does that work? Does that just like solidify you and make a mold? But like, we don't know, and it's probably better off that way. But instead, they just did some psychedelic shit of like weird camera turns and him contorting in different ways and having hallucinogenic visions of Mia Goth dancing naked in what looked like 70s lighting. Yeah. They don't explain why. I mean, I guess it's all part of the process, you know,
Mhm.
they're copying your memories and stuff too, but
I'm trying to think of. So you think Cronenberg, you think body horror, but how much was actually like grotesque, distorted, anything? Like, yes, it was violent and gory, and the masks. That's a
The
separate
masks.
conversation we'll get
That's
to.
a whole separate conversation.
Yes.
Holy shit,
But like
man.
the only like weird, gross thing I remember seeing is like I think it's in that first hallucinogenic scene when he's getting copied. There's like this weird shot of a nipple like squeezing
was that
out.
there
Like,
in the orgy? Yeah, one of those
Yeah, I
two.
think
It
that was
wasn't
the
the-
later scene.
I think it was
Okay.
before the orgy.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking it was a little out of place, but that was kind of like there was like weird like pus or something coming out of it. And then in the orgy scene, I think there was some like quick shots of like faces, almost like people like their faces really were the masks or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
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 But then other than that, like great gore visuals, like tearing his head in half and all that, but that was just straight up gore, practical
Right,
gore
yeah.
stuff, which was cool.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't do, I guess you could say Possessor didn't have a ton of that either,
Mhm.
right? Compared to The Brood or Videodrome or, some of his father's works.
Mhm.
So I guess you could call it body horror, but not in I was going to say traditional sense. I don't know if there's a traditional sense of body horror, but like, though will say within just the first half of the movie, I think he covered all bodily fluids.
Yeah.
It was in like 15 fucking minutes. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, James has expelled all bodily fluids.
Yeah, I think the only one missing was pus, but you could almost argue that was in the nipple scene, but that's kind of solid. We don't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say, because you were talking about the discs and everything. So apparently there's an NC-17 version of this film.
Yes.
And the only thing I read that there was a difference, I mean, I'm sure there's more, but the one thing that I pointed out was like that early scene where Mia comes up behind him when he's taking a leak and jerks him off out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Apparently, like you see that bodily fluid thing happen.
What I read actually, and I don't remember where the article was, that apparently the runtime, from what I read, the runtime is actually the same, and what was changed were some of the quick clips during the orgy scene.
Okay.
Because there were more shots of, private parts, that they had to cut some of that out in order to get the rating. And it's like, this is where the rating system's stupid. It's like, really, three more shots of a penis and 4 more shots of vagina, and all of a sudden you're in a different rating set?
Mm-hmm.
Considering the rest of this movie, that's
Right.
what's making the difference. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I'm actually definitely, supposedly the Canadian release of this Blu-ray is going to be the uncut version.
Okay.
For whatever reason, US is having the cut version, though. In an interview with Brandon, he said that, I guess this Neon has plans to release the uncut version sometime, but there's no timeline or anything like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully that'll be on fucking 4K, because this would look fantastic in 4K.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not out of the gate and Possessor is just like
That's weird.
dumb.
Yeah.
It's the only word I have for that. Especially it streams in 4K, so you have that somewhere.
Do you
It's probably filmed in that way, if I had to guess too. So.
Do you own Possessor
Yes.
on 4K? Is it Neon also, or is it a different company? Maybe it's
I
just
could get up and look.
I mean,
but I think it is. I'd have to confirm that.
yeah, I just wonder if it's like just different distribution models, which is dumb.
Yeah.
He's going,
It'll take
everybody.
It'll take 2 seconds for him to find out.
For our audio listeners, he is browsing his library with his giant shelves.
One of these days, he's going to get those other shelves behind him finished. It'll look great.
Yes, it is Neon.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple other there's a bazillion other studios. I think a lot of them are different, but the main one is Neon, and they're the one on the spine.
Mm-hmm.
So
weird. Okay,
so that's what you do in podcasts, right? You just take off your headphones and walk away. That's normal.
Yeah,
that's what entices the people to watch the video version. They can see it all happen.
yeah.
All right,
As long
Nick,
as you're not the only one doing the podcast, then you can get a
yeah.
yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Nick, tell us about these masks.
Dude, I don't know where to start. They're awesome. They are just very distorted, contorted versions of human faces, but just the detail of them is so real, but gross and over the top. The first time you cut to one, like, is part of their outside festival thing.
Yeah.
Like that juxtaposition there of everybody in white on a tropical beach, whatever, we're coming out of the hotel room, and then it just hard cuts to the grossest close-up of a like really disgusting face and just sits there for a second while you're hearing a dude talk about like the traditions of this native heritage or whatever. And when it pulls back the camera, there's a whole group of them holding instruments and they start bursting into a song. It's just like, wait, this is what you choose to wear for that? They're like really, really messed up.
Yeah.
But damn, I want one for a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
They are awesome.
Neon really needs to get on making these.
Yeah.
I just came across, while you were talking, I was like, oh, are these for sale? So I searched, Infinity Pool masks, and the first thing came up is a tweet from Neon where they have somebody in the white suit, like the guy that worked at the resort, wearing the mask, like walking around a town, freaking the shit out of people. And everybody's comments are like, I want this. Please make merch. We will buy them all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The scene of him sitting there after his first murder, I think it's after the first one, where he's out on a lawn chair in the drizzle with a cigar tucked into the mask.
Yeah.
It was just like, kudos. That was really good shot. Just really, really well done.
Yeah, they're just like, they're unlike anything I've seen. Like there's so many mask companies out there that make distorted faces and everything, but this is just on another freaking level. And also they all have like intricate, like pretty painted designs on them. If you look closely enough, almost like wallpaper, like fancy wallpaper, as if like when it was a normal face, it was this beautiful mask, and then all of a sudden it got freaking hit with a blowtorch or something.
Yeah.
Like my thought was,
oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
My thought was, if anybody in Slipknot sees this movie, they're reaching out. They're reaching out for the next album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, they're far superior than anything they've done.
And also, I love that how they showed them like the introduction of the mask, and it is that really strong juxtaposition as to like why, with little explanation as to why this is a traditional mask for the ceremony, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. But you saw that and go, that's coming into play later.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the promo had some mask in it or something like that. There's actually this great poster I'm looking at that has all the masks as the backdrop, like kind of melting together. Like, I want to print of this. I'm saving that for later. One
of the promo images is of the shot of the two of James and Gabby in the convertible, and like James is in the foreground out of focus and Gabby looking at him with her mask, and like you can assume it's a mask before the movie came out, but you're like, holy hell. And that's what makes you think, okay, the body horror in this is going to be ridiculous.
Right.
But it was like a little rug pull, I guess, or something.
Mm-hmm. I also have to say that they chose well for who gets what masks. Like the one Gabby puts on, like it fit her face just right, especially with the the red around the edge. Like it wasn't too big. Like I don't know, the two of them with their masks, it fit almost disturbingly well.
Mm.
As opposed to some home invasion movie where there's just a plastic animal mask. I'm like, oh, you're wearing a mask. It didn't have that feel to it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one was the one that had like the coins coming out of the mouth.
Yeah, that one was the one that had like two sets of eyes. Like the ones that just like the second set of eyes shifted a little bit lower was a lot.
There was the one that had like two faces too. It had like three eyes and two noses. Yeah. Really fucking cool. Good.
As far as more like filmic things, the music did stand out to me at a few points. I liked it. It was simple, but it had this steady, like imposing, tense vibe to it in certain parts. It was kind of minimalistic, but it definitely worked, and it had that air of like something can snap at any second,
Yeah, I enjoyed the score to this. I'm actually listening to it right now. So when I looked for it on Apple Music, the guy who did it, Tim Hacker, didn't show any other soundtracks under his name. He had a bunch of albums, and I now very curious what kind of music that would be.
Yeah,
if it's like enjoyable, because I love it as the soundtrack, and I see some of the notes here: drones, beats, and atmospheres, shimmering ambient atmospheres, like so. That seems fitting. It's like, how would you not get into soundtrack work beforehand? That's what soundtracks are. But yeah, it's extremely effective for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, I know we talked about editing and the cinematography before, but just the choices that they make with some of the close-ups and the cutaways are just so, I don't know, they just felt different. Like there's a shot of James's like Adam's apple during a tense scene, and there's like close up on both him and Gabby's mouth at one point, and just his hands like gripping the steering wheel or something. And I don't know, just the combo of the angle of the shot, how close it is, and the timing of it, the editing is just, it just, everything moved along really well.
And some of them, like even the mouth close-ups you mentioned, like it wasn't even the whole mouth. It's like the side, you're getting like part of the lips and mostly teeth, and the tongue, like it's
and the depth
it's
of
a
field
little
is
uncomfortable
like
but intense,
super shallow. So yeah.
And even just some of the more simpler things, like in the beginning, right? They're at the tables and they're showing them on the right third of the screen with everything to the left. Like it's a weird view. Just to have one human, it's all the way over here.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so it's kind of like, why? But this is working. I don't know why is working.
Mm-hmm.
But they would do it switching back and forth, so the person was always on that right side, which is not normally how you'd shoot that. So,
yeah. I mean, the movie basically opens with a whole bunch of those like spinning.
That was what I was just gonna say. Is the one film thing that this did that I did not enjoy was that I didn't need to barrel roll through the credits. Like, I don't know what that served, and it never comes back to that type of shot.
Mm-hmm.
There's like it never resurfaces, so like it sets you off really off kilter to begin with, and then just never again.
Mm-hmm.
That felt unnecessary to me. Whatever. It was 3 minutes in the beginning of the movie. It's not like it was during some important climactic scene or something. It was that choice felt weird because it was so disconnected from anything that was going to come later, but minor.
Yeah, I was,
that's fair.
As someone who deals with dizziness problems, I've thought to myself, I would not be able to watch this movie in the theater. I would just be like, let me know when it's over.
Yeah.
This part's over.
So I do have another question about plot point question. So the whole thing with the passport, So after the first murder, he and James and Em are back in the hotel room. Like, should be going to bed. Hopefully, leave. And first of all, she gives him shit for like how he reacted, which I was not okay with that. I thought that was really because she says to him, "How could you watch that like a robot?" It's like, first of all, people react differently.
Yeah.
To these type of things. There's probably a state of shock. Second of all, he's watching himself die. You don't think that affected him in some way? And also, he's probably thinking, better me than me? Like, I mean, but seriously, he's probably thinking, well, I'm glad we were able to do this. Better him than me. I'm like kind of fucked right now. I'm not being a robot. He isn't smiling or cheering like when it was over.
Yeah,
I thought that was very I thought that was very unfair of him. Mm-hmm. But then, so the next day they're packing. They want to get the hell out of there, scrambling. He's like, "Oh, I can't find my passport. I can't find my passport. If you want," and he's like, "If you want to leave without me, I understand. Like, just get the hell out of here." Mm-hmm. But then later in the movie, you find he pulls his passport from under the sink where he seemed to have hid it. Mm-hmm. So we're meant to believe he was affected. The way he was affected was he actually wanted to stay, and that was all an act.
Yep.
Yeah.
It seems obvious saying it out loud now, but at the time in the movie when they were trying to leave, I didn't get that vibe from him. Like, I almost wanted a little, like, a wink to the viewer. Like, she walks away and he reacts. His mood changed a little bit. He smirks or something.
So I think there is a really subtle wink. I think right after he watches himself get killed, and it lingers on a shot of the two of them sitting on the bleachers, he gets like a little bit, like a very little bit of a smirk, like a very little like, haha. Like, which could be, thank goodness it wasn't actually me, but it could also be like, oh shit, I kind of enjoy this.
I guess that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah,
there was definitely like watching. I was like, "Is he smiling?" Like it was hard to tell, but I think that was the nod you were supposed to take from that. Was like, okay, there's part of him that feels very liberated by this. So then he's trying to get Em to leave so he can stay there and play with his new friends.
Okay, I guess that does make sense. I didn't think back to that scene as the wink, but okay.
Yeah, it was like almost too subtle, I think.
Yeah, because I saw that smile and I took it as more like, now he's going to start snapping, like he's reacting like, yeah, that wasn't me, as opposed to
right.
It, but
you don't know yet what the smile is, and then when it takes almost an hour to get to the point where he grabs his passport, you're like, oh, he wanted to stay the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, and so I'm kind of like in the middle on this because I agree with everything you're saying, but this was all before he like knew the group.
Right. Yeah.
And, like knew what was going on. So this was all just a very selfish solo decision, which is like, what was he thinking? You know, if he had that information, if he had that meeting with the group first, then it'd been like, okay, he's intrigued by all of this.
Yeah. I think it tracks better though, the way it played out. I think from his perspective, it's like, cool, I can literally get away with murder here. I kind of like that side of me a little bit. I'm not ready to go home yet. Mm-hmm. And then he meets people who have been doing this too fucking long and they're psycho.
Yeah.
And they're more into it than he is. And they're pushing him further than he wants to go. And he's not okay with it. And that's when he has that like sober up moment. Fuck this. I got to get out of here, grab my passport and go. So like that trajectory kind of made sense to me of like, oh, this could be fun, but I don't want my wife here for it. And then, oh shit, there's a whole group of people who know this too, and they're psycho. And then spiraling from there.
That is a much more interesting arc there.
Yeah. Also, I like how they noted themselves as zombies. I thought that was cute, I guess. But it's like, are you though? I mean, kind of. The whole other philosophical conversation when it comes to zombies.
So I'll do a quick little one thing a small thing that I thought was a little meh, if you want to get super picky, and one thing that I thought was a great little touch. The meh thing, so aside from us not understanding how the whole cloning process works, this is a really tiny thing, but like when he beats the shit out of the dog, quote unquote, dog clone of himself, he like cracks the skull open, right? Like we saw that with his bare hands. That's not possible. But I realize you just do it for effect, whatever. I was much more affected by the time that they tricked him when he thought he was like beating up and pissing on someone else, and it turned out to be another clone of him. Like that was fucked up.
Again, it's such a great mindfuck, though. Not to interrupt, but as soon as that scene revealed, all I could think of was "Liar, Liar." When Jim Carrey goes, "I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?"
Yeah. But so on the other coin, the other side of the coin, the nice little touch that I liked, which I feel like I never really seen or noticed in a movie, is when his clone was getting stabbed umpteen times in the stomach by the kid. He was sweating. Like it's the tiniest little thing, but they made it obvious that like, even before the kids start, like he was so upset and scared that he started to really sweat, and you just don't see that.
Where we're used to seeing people getting chased and stabbed, and then they move on to the next guy, and like
or even people that are in like backed into a corner and screaming or whatever. No one's ever sweating, because that's not attractive on camera. And
but there should be a lot more sweat in horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it was a nice little touch.
Another bodily fluid.
Hey.
Got them all.
He got them covered.
One thing that did strike me as weird, and maybe I just missed something, or maybe it's part of the lore that never gets explained. I was under the impression, and who knows why, that it wasn't like once your body had been scanned, they can just hit print and make another one. I was under the impression it was a 1-to-1 sort of thing. Like you had to go through this process to have one made. There's nothing that says that's true, but if it is, how did he not know there was another one of him when he was beating the shit out of the cop that turned out to be him? Like they would have had to have duplicated him at some point in time, and he would have known there was a second one of him out there.
Right.
I don't know about that, because like the only time we ever see the thing happen is in the police station by the cops when it's sanctioned for the purpose of killing them. So to just be like, oh, we got this one as a gag for you. It's like, well, how the fuck did you pull that off? Do they just now have like a pile that they can just mass produce? Like that almost needed more lore, because it's an inconsistency with anything that is shown throughout the rest of the movie.
That's true. If this was a much more high-tech film, then they would have the file,
right,
and they could just print another one. But I was under the impression that you had to be present.
Right. So to be like, oh, we're surprising you, we got the cop to make us another one of you, is just like, oh, what? Okay.
Yeah, again, that's something that could have been easily explained, because I mean they had that whole big command center thing that with the red light, it was lit red. It just made me think of like some Soviet bunker you've seen in Stranger Things, even, or just any old 80s movie. But I guess there could be files there.
Yeah,
they don't tell you, but
right. I would have liked, like, it feels like a cheap way of pulling the rug out from under you. Like this movie relies on a lot of big turns and misdirects. But if you don't set the lore up for the viewer to have a chance to figure it out, it feels like a cheap victory when you're like, haha, surprise, it was him the whole time. It's like, well, you changed the rules halfway through the movie, man. That's not fair. I don't know.
I mean, the only
I'm
way
a lore
to
guy. I can't help it.
The only way to possibly explain that assuming you had to be present, was this was planned by the group before the home invasion. Because they could have said, all right, make 2 of them, and we're going to set this whole thing up to come get the second one and make them think it's you.
You know how they could have made it happen even easier? The cop guy, when he reveals the clone the first time, says, they don't always come out great the first time. We lucked out that this one came out good. Have there be a slightly deformed second one, and that's the one he's beating the shit out of. And that's the one that turns out to be the dog, because he's not, have that be your body horror of, his arms and legs don't work right, or like he has a tail. I don't know. Just like make up some body horror thing there of the one that didn't come out right. So you kill the other one, but this guy didn't get destroyed. Here you are beating the shit out of him. Like
this one's 50%.
That would have been a very easy one to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. This is the clearance rack version.
That's true.
I don't know. It was just one of those things that like, I don't mind it because they gave you no lore. So you can't really be mad about it. But it seemed like an implied rule, and then to not play by that rule partway through the movie felt a little cheap.
No, that makes sense.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we have anything else we want to touch on before handing out badges?
No, I don't think so.
I lost it.
It's just a very visceral movie in all senses.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. It's sticky. It's hedonistic, as I think I read that word before. It's violent. The drugs crazy. There's sex. I mean, it covers everything you'd want a horror movie, except what's interesting is, I guess, the type of horror, right? Because it's not particularly scary, but that's one of those things like in a almost Martyrs kind of way that just sticks with you. There's something fucked up about it. And that's what you got out of a lot of his father's movies. Sometimes there was creepy things in the movie, but like Videodrome, for example, is one of those ones that just like the first time I saw it, I was like it stuck with me. I was like, what is that? What I just watched?
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. So let's hand out some merit badges to Infinity Pool. If you're new around here, we hand out merit badges for things we thought a film did well instead of doing a rated system or stars or anything like that. I'll go first because I mentioned early on cinematography. Bang, done.
Yeah, that is the low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah.
The other low-hanging fruit is directing. So
yep. I mean, editing too, man. Like,
yep.
You know, that top row is pretty much getting awarded here.
Yep.
I mean, writing doesn't have to. That's up to you guys. But like, those 3 of those are definitely getting awarded here.
I'll also do music.
Yep, I'll go with that. And special effects, I go because between the gore effects and the actual cinematic effects, and
we clearly have to give it lore, right?
Yeah.
No, but I would give it acting though.
Yeah.
I
think so. Right? I mean,
absolutely.
Especially from our 2 leads there, like, yeah, that is commitment through and through.
Right. Mia Goth clearly can play multiple personalities in the same role.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Yeah, I did enjoy their performances. For me, it's going to be hard for her to beat Pearl.
Yeah.
But yeah, she still did a great job. I'm excited for Max. I'm excited for Maxine to see what she does with that too. So, I don't have any more.
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So Infinity Pool is going to get merit badges for cinematography, directing, editing, music, special effects, and acting. Excellent. We did it.
Good.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for checking out the episode. For those of you watching on YouTube, let us know what you thought of the conversation, of the film, anything you want to share with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell if you want to be notified anytime we put out a new video. If you're listening to the audio version on a podcast service, we always appreciate a review over there as well. That'd be great. If you want to find us on social media, Instagram and Twitter. For both of those, we are at horror_scouts. There's going to be a Discord link, a Discord invite link in the description there if you want to come join us on our Discord and chat about horror or check out the latest trailers or anything like that.
I've been slacking on that. I got to get back on there.
Me too.
I was doing good at first. I mean, I said
too.
right at the jump that I was probably not going to keep up on it, but I'm trying. I got to get back into it.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I say every episode, if nothing other than just having a one concise place to just see all the horror trailers that pop up. Like, anytime I find a new one, I'll throw it up there. So that'll do it. Thanks again for joining us, guys. This one was fun.
Yes, it was
very cool, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.